January 8th, 2016. David Bowie's 69th birthday. At exactly midnight, an album called Blackstar dropped on streaming platforms worldwide. 7 songs, dark, experimental, dense with symbolism. Critics called it challenging. Fans called it vintage Bowie, unpredictable as ever. Nobody called it what it actually was, a suicide note disguised as art. Because nobody knew that in exactly 48 hours, David Bowie would be dead. But the real story starts 18 months earlier. New York City, January 2015. A private medical office in Manhattan where celebrities go when they need discretion. David Bowie sits across from his doctor, waiting for test results. The room smells like antiseptic and leather furniture. Outside, the city hums with winter traffic, people rushing to jobs, to lives, to futures they assume will continue. The doctor looks at the charts, then at Bowie. It's cancer, liver, stage 4. Silence, not the comfortable kind, the kind that presses against your chest. How long? Bowie asks. His voice is steady, too steady. 18 months, maybe less. Bowie nods slowly, as if the doctor just told him about a delayed flight, not a death sentence. He stands, shakes the doctor's hand, walks out into the January cold. And right there, on the sidewalk, with taxi horns blaring and strangers rushing past, David Bowie makes a decision that will define his final act on Earth. Nobody can know. Not the press, not the fans, not even the musicians he's about to work with. Because if they know he's dying, everything changes. The narrative gets taken from him. His death becomes a public spectacle. And David Bowie has spent 50 years controlling his own narrative. He's not about to lose control now. But here's what nobody understood at the time. Bowie doesn't just want to hide his death. He wants to weaponize it, turn it into art, create one final album, a farewell so coded, so layered with symbols and hidden meanings that the world won't understand what they're hearing until he's already gone. Then, when the truth comes out, everyone will go back and listen again, and realize they were holding his death letter the entire time. It's the most audacious artistic plan in rock history, and it requires something most dying people can't summon: perfect control, total secrecy, and the strength to perform health while your body is destroying itself. Imagine that pressure. You're dying. You know you're dying. You've got maybe a year and a half. And instead of resting, instead of saying goodbye to loved ones, you decide, I'm going to make one last masterpiece, and I'm going to hide the fact that I'm dying from everyone involved. Why? Because David Bowie understood something most artists never grasp. Art created in the shadow of death hits different, but only if the audience doesn't know death is coming. February 2015. Magic Shop Studios, New York. The recording sessions begin. Bowie walks in, greets the band, jazz musicians mostly. Donnie McCaslin on saxophone, producer Tony Visconti, who's worked with Bowie for 40 years. They're excited. New Bowie album, always an event. Bowie hands them sheet music for the first track, Blackstar, 10 minutes long. Dark, experimental. Nothing like radio-friendly pop. What's it about, someone asks. Bowie smiles. Death, transcendence, the usual. They laugh. Of course it's about death. Bowie's always been theatrical, dramatic, obsessed with big existential themes. Nobody thinks he's actually dying. They think, classic Bowie, being weird again. And that's exactly what he needs them to think. But here's the secret nobody knew. Between recording sessions, Bowie is doing chemotherapy. The treatments leave him weak, nauseous, exhausted. Some days he can barely stand. But when he walks into that studio, he performs strength, focuses, directs, creates. The musicians later said he seemed tired sometimes, but Bowie was always intense in the studio, always demanding perfection, so nobody suspects. Nobody asks, "Are you okay?" Because Bowie has spent his entire career being theatrical, being other than himself. Now, the greatest performance of his life isn't Ziggy Stardust or the Thin White Duke. It's pretending to be healthy while dying. Think about that level of control. You're in pain. The cancer is eating you from the inside. You're doing chemo. You're weak. But you can't show it. Because if one person finds out, the entire plan collapses. The press descends. Your death becomes a tabloid story. The narrative gets ripped away from you. So you smile. You work. You create. And you count down the days you have left. Spring 2015. The album is taking shape. 7 songs. That's all Bowie has strength for. 7 songs to say everything he can't say out loud. The track Lazarus opens with Bowie singing about being in heaven, about having scars that can't be seen, about trying to escape something. In the music video, filmed months later, Bowie lies in a hospital bed, bandages over his eyes, writing frantically in a notebook. At the end of the video, he retreats backward into a dark wardrobe and closes the door. It's not subtle. It's literally a man retreating into death, but nobody sees it, because nobody knows he's dying. They think Bowie being artsy, theatrical, provocative, the greatest magic trick ever pulled, hiding your death in plain sight, showing it to millions of people, and having them miss it completely. But the real conflict is happening inside Bowie's body. Summer 2015. The cancer is winning. Sessions are harder now. Bowie has to take more breaks. His voice, always strong, always controlled, is weakening. Tony Visconti notices he's struggling. "You okay?" he asks during one session. "Fine," Bowie says. "Let's do another take." What Visconti doesn't know, Bowie isn't perfecting the music. He's racing against time. Every session could be the last one his body allows. Every note could be his final recorded sound. He's working against a deadline that isn't on any calendar. The deadline is his own failing body. And he can't tell anyone. Because the moment he does, everything changes. The music becomes about his death. Instead of from his death, there's a difference. Fall 2015. The album is done. 7 songs, 41 minutes of music. Bowie's body is deteriorating rapidly now. He's thin. Thinner than he's ever been. The cancer has taken almost everything. But the art is finished. Now comes the final decision. When do you release it? When do you die? Bowie chooses his 69th birthday, January 8th, 2016. Release the album. Let people hear it. Let them think it's just another weird Bowie album. And then, 2 days later, pull back the curtain. Die. Force everyone to re-listen and realize every song was goodbye. It's the ultimate artistic control. Even in death, Bowie is directing the narrative. December 2015. Bowie is barely leaving his apartment now. The pain is constant. The cancer has spread. He's weak. Iman is with him, his children, close family. They know what's coming. But the world doesn't. The world still thinks David Bowie is just David Bowie. Alive, healthy, probably planning his next reinvention. Bowie spends his final weeks choosing which photos to release, which statements to make, how the announcement of his death will be worded. Every detail controlled, because if he doesn't control it, someone else will. January 8th, 2016, midnight. Blackstar is released. Bowie is at home, barely conscious. The morphine keeps the pain at bay, but it also keeps him in a fog. Iman plays him the early reviews, the social media reactions. People are confused, intrigued. Some love it, some don't get it. But everyone agrees. Classic Bowie, unpredictable, challenging. Nobody knows they're listening to a dying man's final words. Bowie smiles weakly. It worked. The performance worked. January 10th, 2016, 12:17 a.m. David Bowie dies at home, surrounded by his family. For a few hours, he's just gone. Quietly, privately. The world doesn't know yet. At 10 a.m., his social media account posts a single message. David Bowie died peacefully today, surrounded by his family, after a courageous 18-month battle with cancer. The world stops. And then everyone goes back to the album. Suddenly, everything makes sense. The hospital bed in Lazarus, the dying astronaut in Blackstar. The themes of departure, transcendence, letting go. He was telling us the whole time. We just didn't know we were listening to a man's final words. Tony Visconti, Bowie's producer for 40 years, is devastated. He posts online. He always did what he wanted to do, and he wanted to do it his way, and he wanted to do it the best way. His death was no different from his life, a work of art. The musicians who recorded with him are shattered. They'd been in a room with a dying man for months and never knew. Donnie McCaslin, the saxophonist, later said, "We thought we were making avant-garde jazz. We didn't know we were recording someone's death." Imagine that. Imagine finding out the person you worked with every day was dying and never told you. Some felt betrayed. But that misses the point. Bowie wasn't hiding it because he didn't trust them. He was hiding it because he needed to stay in control. If they'd known, they would have treated him differently. The music would have become sentimental, careful, reverent, and Bowie didn't want reverence. He wanted truth. Raw, unfiltered, artistic truth. The world spent the next weeks decoding the album, every lyric analyzed, every image dissected. The album cover, a black star fragmented, breaking apart. In astronomy, a black star is theoretical, a collapsed star that's dead but still emitting energy. That was Bowie. Dead but still radiating. The Lazarus video, Bowie retreating into the wardrobe. Not metaphor, literal. He was showing us his death. We just didn't see it until he was gone. But here's what haunts people most. In his final months, Bowie could have rested, could have spent time with family, could have said goodbye in person. But he didn't. He worked. Why? Because for Bowie, the art was the goodbye. He didn't know how to say, "I'm dying," with words, so he said it with music, with images, with symbols. That was the only language he trusted. Iman has never remarried. She said once, "I fell in love with David Jones. I did not fall in love with David Bowie. Bowie is just a persona. He's a singer, an entertainer. David Jones is a man I met." After his death, she posted occasionally photos, memories, always private, always controlled, just like he would have wanted. So what's the lesson? David Bowie spent 50 years teaching the world that identity is fluid, that you can be anyone. Ziggy, the Duke, the thin white Duke. But in the end, he became the hardest thing of all, himself. A man, dying, afraid, but determined to control his own ending. Blackstar isn't just an album. It's proof that even death, especially death, can be art, if you're brave enough, if you're controlled enough, and if you're willing to perform strength while your body breaks down. Nobody knew until he was gone. And that's how he wanted it, because David Bowie understood. If you tell people you're dying, they treat you like you're already dead. So he didn't tell them. He just worked, created, left behind one final gift. A goodbye disguised as art, a death letter hidden in plain sight, and then, 2 days after releasing it, he disappeared, leaving the world holding an album they didn't understand. Until it was too late. That's the story nobody tells you. About the album a dying man made in secret, and how he controlled his own death like he controlled everything else, perfectly, deliberately, on his own terms.